Boom, what's going on everyone? It is Steve Larsen. This is Sales Funnel Radio. Today I'm going to teach you guys why branding comes second.
I've spent the last 4 years learning from the most brilliant marketers today. And now I've left my 9-to-5 to take the plunge and build my $1 million business. The real question is, how will I do it without VC funding or debt, completely from scratch? This podcast is here to give you the answer. Join me and follow along as I learn, apply, and share marketing strategies to grow my online business using only today's best internet sales funnels. My name is Steve Larsen, and welcome to Sales Funnel Radio.
All right, you guys, I know that I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers with this episode. I totally get that. I totally understand. I'm not trying to, but I feel so strongly about this. Like, if someone gets offended, like, okay, all right, sounds good. Okay, so about 6 years ago, I was going and I had the unique opportunity of going and pitching some actual investors to invest in a business plan that I had written. Okay, now this is before I ever had considered the fact that maybe VC funding wasn't always the best route, depending on what you were doing, right? Maybe I didn't need to get funding. Maybe I didn't need to give up debt. Maybe I didn't need to give up ownership in a company just to get it going, right? And what was interesting is, that was before I ever learned about any of this stuff, okay? And I've always been very active in this sphere, though, and so I was doing what I thought was best. And so what I did is I remember we went and we wrote, I think it was like a 30-page business plan, and it was in the real estate space, and it was with a buddy of mine, and he and I, as well as a few others, we came up with this plan to go, and it was this really cool real estate strategy. His dad was a kind of a real estate Mongol, kind of, and he was like, he was taking us under his wing a little bit, and he was showing us some cool, neat ways to get, I think it was storage units and offset cost with like these clever, and it was really cool. It's really cool. Anyway, so we were excited about it. We were like, sweet. And what if we just asked for the amount of investment that it would cost for us to go get a down payment on one of these properties? So we're like, well, let's just try it. And cool enough, like the professor we were doing this class with was facilitating the whole process. So he went out, and the professor he actually grabbed these investors. So we did it in front of a live panel of investors. And we had the unique opportunity of going in, and we did the exact process that, I mean, man, you see it on Shark Tank, man. It was without as much drama. There's no slow motion, and there wasn't any like slow-mo staring at each other looks before anyone said anything, on CNBC. But it was still awesome, okay? And I remember we sat there and we got to watch, as each group would present their business plan, how much they believe their company is worth, ask for a percentage, given a percentage of the company away in exchange for an investment amount, and then watch them as they would defend why that was an awesome idea, why they should get the cash, how come they had great numbers, things like that. It was really, really cool. And I learned a lot just in that, okay, and understanding how all that works. And it's really helped me even in my funnel building, funny enough, even though I don't go that route. So what was interesting is, like, as I started doing that stuff, they told us, like, hey, if somebody goes in and it truly is amazing, they will actually invest. It was like, sweet, right? Well, we get up there and we start talking and stuff like that. And I remember that there were these different elements in creating this. It was like a 30-page business plan. It was very, very professional looking. We did everything from a SWOT analysis, if you guys know what that is. We went, all like the standard stuff that you're supposed to do when creating a business plan and analyzing a market, which is 100% different than I do it now. Which is, anyway, very fascinating. But anyways, we went in, and one of the key points, so I don't think any of us got any kind of investment. We did really well, all of one of us. It was awesome in front of that. But anyway, none of us got any kind of investment or anything like that. But we did that actually multiple times because of what I had studied. And I actually really do appreciate the college I went to on all this stuff. They did a great job for what they had, right? No one really teaches direct response marketing. That's kind of something you have to go learn on your own. You know what I mean? There's not like a major for that. No one's teaching that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So for what they had, it was awesome. I get it. So there were multiple occasions, though, where we did that. I wrote a ton of business plans in college, and they were all very, very similar. And we would go in, and there was a format we were following, and then we'd go and we'd present it, whether it was just a professor or kind of like a dummy panel or a real panel. And we did that many times, multiple times. And I started getting good at defending ideas, right? and back and forth with that. And then when we actually started doing it for real, right? Colton and I sitting over there, we actually went and we did it with a business that he and I were doing, and we ended up winning the business competition in our college, and they sent us off to another college to go do it over there, and we totally did not win over there, but it was a good experience. It was a bunch of fun, and we learned a lot. Now, now you say, Stephen, what does that have to do with branding? There was always a moment in creating these business plans where you're like, crap, I got this idea. What represents my idea? We need a logo. What's our slogan? Right? What's our mission statement? What's this? And I was like, we would spend so much time on those things that it actually ended up being a distraction of what actually caused value in that company, right? It's so much the same pattern now, right? The reason why I have such a war against branding, okay, is because it doesn't matter for a long time. Okay, it really doesn't. Most of the time when I go and I start creating something like a brand, man, I go to like sites and I will buy a little logo that I think looks cool. I'll switch the colors around so it looks somewhat okay. And in 15 minutes, I have a logo. Okay, I do that all the time. Okay, and there's only like 3 or 4 logos that I've ever had professionally created, but it's not until there's cash raining that I even think about that stuff. Okay, and what's interesting about that is that the case of branding comes along. Very frequently. Okay, there was one group I remember, the student group. They came up, and in fact, you can see this in Shark Tank all the time, right? There was a lady I was watching is in Shark Tank. She came up and she had the product there in front of her, right? I love watching Shark Tank. She had the product there in front of her. She had a beautiful display, amazing display with her stuff. There was the slogan. There was this is what we're gonna do that's different. There was this is what we're gonna, right? And you're like, cool, that's awesome. And then here comes the dreaded question that they always ask. Now tell us what your numbers are. They go, well, so we just started this 3 months ago, and you always see the faces. I was like, yeah, like, oh crap, right? I'm sure they just add those in because of straight drama, because they never invest in them, right? And it's because it's not worth anything. Like, but and you hear the way that entrepreneurs that are brand new will defend their products, and they always, a lot of time, not always, but a lot of times their defense comes back to things like branding. Well, we got a great logo. Well, we got a great color scheme. We got a great, right? It's not uncommon to hear that kind of a phrase when somebody's defending their idea. Well, we got the logo done. We got that right. I have this has happened many times, right? I told you guys it took me about 17 tries to really get a business right. I've had many of those early 17 tries before I knew anything what I was doing, where I would spend literally 2 or 3 days looking through different logos trying to figure out which one was the best to represent the company, rather than how do we sell the thing, right? Totally different question. And it's so funny how different it is. And so there's so many stories that are running through my head about this topic. Recently, somebody reached out and they said, you know what, Stephen? You could do a lot better if your personal branding was better. I'm a personal branding expert. And I was like, cool. I really don't care. And they're like, what are you talking about? Right? And I remember I said that. So I said this like a year ago, okay? And I was like, I really don't care. Personal branding doesn't mean a thing to me for a while. And they're like, no, the personal branding is what represents you. And I was like, no, my products represent me. My stories represent me. My podcast represents me. My branding does not. Right? I just barely got this backdrop. We just barely got like these sweet like intros and outros. We just barely, right? The reason I'm saying this is that like, does branding matter? Yes, but not for a long time, okay? Not for a while, okay? You go back and you even listen to Russell Brunson's courses. You even go back and lots of guys' courses that are out there, okay? They all say the same thing, okay? When you're starting to deal with things like cold traffic, right? And you go when you go to, okay, here's when it matters. This is when branding actually matters, okay? If you got warm traffic, hot traffic, warm traffic, cold traffic, okay? Branding tends to matter more to hot traffic, okay? Hot and warm, kind of in that realm. When you get to a warm, cold kind of scenario where people don't know who you are anyway, right? It really doesn't matter as much as we wish it did, right? It's the reason why I build the pages and it just kind of like, all right, let's ship it, right? Right? We went through and we grabbed the top 100 funnels that are converting the most in ClickFunnels. For the most part, they're all pretty butt ugly funnels. I mean, like really, like, and almost all of them. It was like 95 of the 100, okay? Absolutely not designed pretty. Absolutely not. Now, right, does this make sense what I'm saying? Does this make sense what I'm trying to say with this whole thing? I have been geeking out on an author lately. He's become one of my favorite authors. His name is Christopher Lochhead. I think it's how you say his last name. Anyway, And he talks about this, right? He talks about this. For a small E entrepreneur, branding like comes so far down the road, right? Right. In fact, actually, let me grab the quote right here. It's super awesome. I read this on a plane. I like to either read or write on a plane. Anyway, he says quite bluntly, branding in the absence of category creation is BS. Okay, he doesn't say BS. Okay, he says quite bluntly though, branding in the absence of category creation is BS. Okay. Okay. He says categories make brands. Okay. Categories make brands. Branding comes after category creation. If you are like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go into, I don't know, think about anything where the super high competitive. Let's say you're going to go into the biz op space. Let's say you're going to sell wealth. And then let's say you're going to go sell real estate. Okay. And let's say in order for you to be successful in real estate, you're like, I'm going to become a real estate agent. Right? Does that make sense? You're going to be wealthy because you're going to go into real estate and you're going to go into real estate by becoming a real estate agent. Sweet. Now, if you are doing literally the exact same thing as everybody else, why on earth are you going to make a brand? That's not going to set you apart very well. Okay? What sets you apart is figuring out how to be different than right? I'm not saying branding different. I'm saying what are you physically doing different to collect leads than every other agent? What are you physically doing different to close leads that's different than every other agent? What are you physically doing that's different, right? To follow up, to upsell if you do upsell, right? Right? Does that make sense? Then think about branding, right? Otherwise, you don't have a freaking business. Why would you think through? Why would you spend money on something like a brand? Something like, you know what I mean? It's funny to me, like, there's been multiple times where I'll go in, and I'm not going to name names, but start looking, okay? And you go in, and these people have these beautiful personal brands, and I can't figure out what the heck they sell, right? And I start diving in deeply, and you find out they don't even have a product yet, but man, they have spent $5,000 hiring the great people to make them look awesome. And I'm like, sweet, that is a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? And again, I'm not trying to throw rocks, but I don't really care if you feel it, right? Because I'm so forward on this topic, okay? Categories make brands, okay? Okay, when you go in, it's kind of like in the book Expert Secrets, right? The idea is not to choose a niche. The idea is to create a niche. Okay, another word for a niche is market or category. Okay, go create the market that doesn't exist. Go create the category that's never existed before. Do something come up with a category that truly is unique, right? And the way you move people into that is by using what I've called the purple offer, right? You use elements from the red so that there's a place of security for them, right? And you, because it's proven, right? But then you also lace in these other things from this category that's never existed before, from things that have never existed before, and you start moving them this way. There's super cool, I think it was another Shark Tank thing. These guys made these really cool, they were like mechanical engineers. They were extremely smart, okay? I think they had gotten their, is at least master's or PhD in like mechanical engineering or something like that. I think the company's called Pop Cards. I have one over there. I got one for my wife for her birthday. They're super cool. But what they figured out is that they could use like cool machine lasering and stuff like that to create these 3D pop-up cards, right? Welcome cards. And people are like, why did you get that much education to create a card company? You know what I mean? Right? It's like, that's a good question, right? Why would you ask that? You look at these things and they're gorgeous. Like it's breathtaking. You open these things up and it's extremely intricate, okay? A lot of math involved in what they've done, right? A lot of anyway, it's super, super cool what they've done, okay? They created something that's never been done before. Now let's think about branding. Does that make sense? Just in that order that I like to do it. They first create the category. It's never existed before. Now the brand, okay? Music even, right? I was just actually talking with Russell about this yesterday. There is a band that I really, really like. I followed their music for years, found out that he likes a song from them too. I was like, what's up? That's really cool. And I messaged him. I said, the reason why they're so big and so popular, the name of them is Odessa. Okay. And the reason they're so popular and they're such a big deal is because they kind of created a category of music that's never existed before. So they were the obvious owner of it. Now they made branding, and you look at all their stuff, and it's amazing, and it's incredible. They didn't have any of that stuff, though, before they launched. It doesn't matter, right? What matters is figuring out which category, which niche, which market you can create and step into, be the first of, and then make all the branding, okay? So anyways, without saying the same thing over and over again, that's the main point of this podcast. That's the reason why when somebody's like, what should my logo be? I'm like, I don't freaking care. I will never have a business card. I don't understand them. Why do I need a business card, right? Why do I need, right? These little tiny things, unless it's part of like a little marketing campaign that I've done. Last year at Funnel Hacking Live, I made my dad business cards, but with the QR code that was his bait. So they scanned the QR code and they got his cool free bait and it started him into the funnel. Like that makes sense, right? But just a freaking name and email, man, they can like get on my Facebook profile. You know what I mean? Right? Anyway, so that's my whole beef with it. And when someone's like, oh man, this page you could design it better. You could do this over here. They could do this here. And like, you know what? This page gets 65% opt-in rate. I don't really care to touch it. You know what I mean? And I know it's not because of how it looks that it's converting. And anyway, so guys, I just want to say like that. Anyway, I'm trying to clear the smoke on my opinions of this topic because several people have reached in asking about it. And it's not a personal attack or anything, but like literally from a sales and marketing standpoint, marketing is not branding. Okay? It's not. Marketing is the act of changing beliefs with the intent for a purchase to happen. That's all marketing is. I'm changing someone's beliefs with the intent for them to make a purchase. That's what marketing is. Branding is not marketing. Okay? It's not. Facebook ads is not marketing. It can be part of it, just like branding can be part of marketing, but it's not marketing, okay? And I'm trying to get clear on these definitions, people, and I actually might do like a definitions podcast here soon, which I think would be really, really cool, just so that you all see like where I operate from and why my stuff is working. I know the 3 or 4 terms that I focus on that make the money flow. And when I take my eye away from them and I start looking at things like branding, right? That's when my money usually starts decreasing, right? For all the hot traffic, for all the follow-up sales, for repeat purchases, branding can start to matter more for sure, absolutely. And people will want that kind of professional feel, depending what you're doing, right? They just want to know that it was created with intent, that it's not haphazard, right? But when it comes down to like a lot of my front end stuff, when it comes down, that's why I didn't upgrade the podcast for a long time. That's why I didn't upgrade, like, you know what I mean? It didn't matter, right? It didn't matter for a long time. And now that hot traffic, I've gone through and we've done a pretty strong rebranding of a lot of my front end stuff. We've got chatbots in place now, right? We've got everything's tied together. A lot of value ladder steps, right? I'm getting to a place in both businesses that I've been building where, not in both, especially one of them, where it's a lot more automation, where I'm going in and I'm creating systems and processes to remove me, right? Now it's time to think about branding. Now it's time to think about, right, creating more of that feeling and that experience as well, right? We're upgrading the package that we ship out to people when they buy products. The actual physical box, right? We've got logos we're putting on there rather than just a normal envelope. For a while, a normal envelope was fine. But people will act like branding is like this lock gate for them to make money. It's not. And it's not the reason someone's not buying from you, okay? It's not, okay? Go back to the sales message, go back to the fundamentals. Do I have a sales message that's compelling? Do I have an offer that over-delivers both to the customer and my wallet, okay? Because you don't have to compete on price when you don't have to compete on price when you have a good offer, okay? Okay, and then when those are all confirming that they're great, then the cash is coming and you can go do all the tweaks you want to the funnel and it's still working. You got cool, sustainable traffic. Then I think about a little rebrand and branding itself. So anyways, guys, hopefully that's helpful to you. And hopefully it clarifies a little bit about why I look at things that I do. And when I'm building a page, I'm not really looking, like I'll kind of make it so the layout is easy to consume the text, right? And that they actually consume more of the sales message. That doesn't have anything to do really with like colors, right? It really doesn't. Anyway, so thanks guys so much. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Remember, categories make brands, right? Branding in the absence of category creation, in the absence of niche or market creation is BS. And it doesn't, it's a waste of time. It's not the reason why things convert. All right, guys, thanks so much. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Woohoo! Hey, thanks for listening. Hey, many don't know that I actually made my first money online as an affiliate marketer. If you want to know how I funded my entire company without using any of my own money ever, you can learn to do the same for free at affiliateoutrage.com.